I'll call this meeting back to order. In doing that, I'd like to recognize that Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Confederated Villages of Lisan, the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay Miwok and Northern Yokut, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the MDUSD community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize that the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of MDUSD and broader Bay Area communities today. You can rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 6.2, review and potential approval of the minutes.
I make a motion we approve the minutes from the last board meeting.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores?
Yes.
That passes 4-0 with our student advising. 6.3, review and potential approval of the agenda. Any changes? Anything? We're all good? So
I would make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores?
Yes.
And that passes unanimously. Report out on action taken in closed session, number 7.1, negotiations. We heard an update on our negotiations. 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee. And we just heard an update. And then 7.3, existing litigation, conference with legal counsel on Jane Doe versus Mount Diablo Unified School District et al. USDC action number 18 CV 02589. The board voted 4-0 to approve the proposed settlement agreement. And Jane Roe versus Mount Diablo Unified School District, Contra Costa County Superior Court action number C14-00262. The board voted 4-0 to approve the proposed settlement agreement. So we can move on to public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education that is not on this agenda. And these presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or we can limit, but we will not have to, the time. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, public period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. And a reminder, we are not allowed to respond to your comments. Kip Pinovich.
I think each time I come up here, I'm just going to start with my theme: attract and retain, and money wins. I've been here at the past few meetings, and I've watched as you've addressed administrator underpayment, and people are saying, I can get better elsewhere. So you did something about it. There were problems with substitutes. We're having a hard time getting them here. You did something about it. You got a hard time hiring people. You did something about it. What did you do every time? You paid them more. You acknowledge that. That's good. Just to update you, Pittsburgh just got an 8.5% increase, and they get 100% medical coverage now. John Sweat got a 9% salary increase, and they already have 100% health coverage. During the administrator discussion, you were presented some data. I went and looked at my own data. And so I looked up things that were 22, 23. I don't know where the information you got was coming from. But one thing they did that kind of skewed results was they gave the same benefit across the board of $23,000, as if every single person was getting a family plan. Even if you get the family plan, you still have to fork out $4,000 or so of your own pay in order to cover the balance. So even though John Sweat, for example, has a top salary that's maybe $1,000 below us, they're still better off because our teachers, if they're taking the full payment, have to pay around $4,000 to cover the rest of their medical expenses. I also compared the median to the top salary for teachers because I was curious why you even put the teachers on there. This was about the administrators, not the teachers. And it showed that the teachers were somehow a little bit positive compared to the median. When I used the 22-23 numbers at the top of the pay scale, salary only, Mount Diablo teachers are about $2,000 below the median. Anytime you want the information, I'll get it for you. I got all the websites bookmarked. Over the last 6 years, including the projections for 23-24, there's a compounded COLA that's come through of 33.6%. We've gotten 12% increase in pay. That's not going to keep people here, and it's not going to attract them. There are 3 things that other districts are doing. They're increasing their salary schedule. They're improving benefits, and they are uncapping accepting years of service, and they're correcting those people who were harmed by that policy in the past. If you want to keep up with everybody around, that's what they're doing. Thank you.
Laura Nakamura. Councilwoman Laura Nakamura.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight mostly because of item 12.1. I'm very curious as to the study that you're doing. You're presenting about the demographics and enrollment. But I also wanted to let you know that as a newly elected city council member for Concord, I have been appointed by our mayor to chair the Youth and Education committee that we have. And I welcome anyone here, anyone in the public who is has anything to do with youth and education to reach out to me if you would like to do something with our commission at the city level. I would love to see the city and the district partner for the betterment of our youth in our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Max Dashner.
Hello, I'm just here to say that the Concord High has been, as the students, we were told that we're changing our name, and it doesn't really sit right with me because my dad, my mom, my aunts, and pretty much my whole family have all gone through there. And my little brother is in the 8th grade, and I'm going to graduate as a Minuteman, and I'm not sure if he's going to get to do that. And the name Minuteman, it means a lot, and it just has a lot of pride, and it means a lot. And I don't, as students, we weren't really told like why it's changing, and I just kind of want to know why.
Thank you. Julie Leister or Lister, I'm sorry to mispronounce, Lister.
On that same subject of the mascot change, I am a Mexican woman and a part of the Latin community, but I'm also an American, and I consider myself a patriot. And my kids went to school. Both my sons graduated from Concord High. I actually served on the athletic boosters for 6 years during that time on the board. And so I have a lot of pride in the Minutemen because I know the history of the Minutemen. And so I have a connection with that. And I really feel this whole change of the mascot wasn't, it, I feel like it wasn't really represented well to the kids. And I feel like part of their connection to it is that they don't actually have they don't have an education of who the Minutemen were and the proud place they had in our nation's history. And so with that, I just to know that there's a lot of us in the community that feel we might have underserved our children by not giving them that education and giving that the connection to it. The other thing is the funds that would cost to the school and to the district for the changing of a mascot. I don't believe it's necessary. I believe we can make our mascot more inclusive and meet that goal. And with those other funds, we could do things to bring things back to Concord High, like our drama, like more foreign languages that have been missing. So I feel those funds would be better allocated to help our children and to help our students and actually to help everyone in Concord, because as our district does well, so do our properties and so does our value. So thank you.
I'm not sure if it's Mark or Merrick Lloyd. Mark, sorry, there was space between the lines.
So you might be wondering why there's so many people here from Concord High. Last week, we attended a meeting and we were told by the new administration that the name change is going through. Even though I understand the original resolution was from 2020 and expired 1 year after for the district to pay for the name change. All estimates have this name change and the expenses it would cost would be about at least $165,000, if not more. And changes marquees, changing all the scoreboards, changing all the uniforms, changing the band uniforms, which I hear are $1,000 each, or which we have a lot of band uniforms. For 57 years, our community has identified as Minutemen. We're different than all the other schools. We don't represent an animal. We're very unique, and we have a lot of heart in this. We have a lot of alumni here that were basically felt like they didn't get a voice at all, and we're part of the community. We're the ones you come to when they need fundraising. We're the ones that step up and do it. I myself, I was part of the Athletic Foundation when the board eliminated all funding for sports at all the high schools. I was a vice president and then a president of that. We raised $1.5 million a year for 4 years to keep athletics at all high schools because it was important. So I have an investment in this, in my school. I have 3 kids that graduated through there. And I feel that the way it was done, that they didn't address it at all to us. The community wasn't given any input on this. And like it was said before, they really need to teach the kids what it means. Had the Minutemen not been successful, our history may be very different. They represented separate towns to defend. And there was women in Minutemen, there was men, and there was different races all through. They just weren't all just white men. And you had to be selected. You had to be strong. You had to be confident. You had to be dependable. These were all qualities we want our students to have. And I think we're doing a grave injustice by not looking at it. Does the gun need to come off the board out front? Yeah, I don't know where they got that logo from. I've never seen it before. And I was involved with Concord High with my children for 16 years. And they put a Minuteman up there with a rifle. I don't know who okayed that. But yeah, that needs to go. But as far as the whole name, I don't believe it does. And I hope you'll look at your resolution and reconsider. Thank you.
Cassidy Porter.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm a graduate from Concord High as well, and I'd like to address the same topic of the Minutemen mascot being changed. I'm going to piggyback off of a lot of what the last few individuals have said. They made a lot of great points. And the thing that I feel is that I wouldn't say that, I'm not going to stand here and say that like I'm just so connected to Minuteman that that's why I don't want it to change. But what I find is that the fact of them trying to change this mascot shows really a failure to educate by the staff of Concord High. If the students at Concord High don't feel a connection to the Minutemen and can't feel proud of that as a mascot, rather than just having a silly animal that you run out there and say, well, we're this animal and that's fun, then they just don't understand what the Minutemen are. Because people today are really fighting for things that matter. Everyone is trying to be an activist for good reasons. And that's what the Minutemen did. Like the gentleman before me said, Mark, he was saying, they fought for freedom and they shaped our country. So I find it hard to believe that kids would not be proud of that as their mascot if they really understood the history. And I graduated 5 years ago, and I could say that while I was at Concord High, I never specifically learned about the Minutemen. I just know about them. I know what they did, but I don't know very much. And I wish I would have learned more in high school. But if that's your mascot, I think that a much more effective change that could be made, rather than the costly changes that Mark explained about changing scoreboards and uniforms and everything else, would be a very much cheaper change of, all right, well, let's teach the kids why they should be so proud of this mascot. Let's educate them in our school where we do this and we have the training to educate. Let's educate them on why Minutemen are a mascot to be proud of and why we should. Because to not understand that is a failure. I mean, these are people who made our country what it is today. And there's people on either side that may say that today things are going poorly, but there's always people who are active and working for that. Minutemen were volunteers, and there's people who go out every day and fight for what they believe in. And this is what these people did. The Minutemen were part of our history that everyone should be proud of. And for them to just want to change it because, I mean, any student would say, yeah, I want to pick a mascot. That'd be really cool. Like I said, I was in high school 5 years ago. I would have loved to just pick a mascot because as a high schooler, it's cool to have a little bit of control over something. However, to actually be tied to something, to be able to go out and say that you know why your mascot is something to be proud of is a whole different thing. And as well, there may be some concerns. Like you said, rifle doesn't need to be there. And the Minutemen name, it's not necessarily inclusive, but it can be made much more inclusive. And I think that is what that administration needs to be working towards, rather than just changing it because something's difficult. You shouldn't teach kids that when something's difficult, you just change it up, give people the option to change it.
Thank you.
What was that?
I just said if you could wrap up.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
But just like say, it is fairly inclusive because of Minutemen, Minutewomen. Kids show up to a sporting event or a band event, and they could be called the Minute Militia. And it was already established in a meeting, the meeting we had a week ago, that they do have multiple representative.
Thank you so much for your
illustrations.
comments. I appreciate it. Ashley Barrows.
Dr. Clark at the school board, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am an alumna of Concord High School and proud to identify as a Minuteman, and so are my children. I attended last Thursday's meeting at Concord High School about possibly changing the Minuteman mascot. We viewed the PowerPoint presentation shown to the students, and all was fine until the slide quoting Resolution 2021-80. The words "and if necessary" were replaced with an ellipsis. This omission of these three key words gave the entire presentation an air of finality, that the school board was requesting this mascot change and there was nothing anybody could do about it. This resolution does not mandate schools change to a non-human mascot, as inferred by messages from Concord High School. Are they implying that a safe and welcoming environment is not possible with the Minuteman as a mascot? The most important stakeholders are the students. Do they feel the Minuteman is still a viable and acceptable mascot? Perhaps it just needs to be updated with the addition of a female figure. I could even understand removing the musket if deemed necessary. In 2007, the marching band trailers were painted with 2 profiles of highly stylized Minutemen, 1 female and 1 male. They have an almost anime or elfin feel to them, and they are painted in green. I challenge you to tell me which ethnicity they represent. Concord High currently has an approximate enrollment of 1,180 students. Such an important issue should require a supermajority or 2/3 vote to pass. Are there really 779 students who feel the need for this change? What happens if there isn't a supermajority or even a 51% simple majority of 602 students? Will there be changes made if just 40 students show up to a leadership meeting and vote? These are questions I feel should be resolved before there is any discussion of suggestions for a completely new mascot. The first ballot put before students should have 1 question with 3 answers. In order to provide the mandated safe and welcoming environment, should the mascot stay as it is, be updated or adapted somehow, or be completely changed? Unless 779 students vote for answer 2 or 3, this issue is done. This resolution states that the school board shall bear the costs, but only if approved before the 1-year deadline. That deadline was June of last year. Has there been an unannounced extension of this deadline, or will changes have to be paid for by our school site budget? This is an enormous amount of money. For example, purchasing comparable quality marching band uniforms will conservatively cost $165,000, and that does not include shoes or warm-up jackets. How much will everything cost? $500,000, $1 million? All for something that we don't know
If you
is
can wrap
necessary.
up. Thank you.
Is this a smart use of educational dollars when enrollment is declining across the district? I'm sure other parents would rather this money be used for hiring teachers, buying new classroom materials, or turning on the heat in classrooms that haven't had it since November. I asked these questions at the meeting.
For your comment.
Okay. Please make sure it's coming from the students and not the administration.
Thank you. Sorry. Moving on to communications. District organizations at regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are information, and we have Anita Johnson.
Good evening. I'm Anita Johnson, president of the Mount Diablo Education Association. My pronouns are she and her. Medea is a united group of educators working together for the benefits of the students of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. The Medea Awards of Excellence is an elegant event in which we recognize 10 different award categories that encompass all groups of employees and all community members. The Medea Awards of Excellence will be celebrated on Thursday, May 11th at 5 p.m. at Center Concord. Everyone hearing this message is cordially invited to attend. Everyone is also invited to nominate individuals for an award. Nominations are due on February the 28th. I apologize. I have a new computer and it doesn't have a touch screen and it's driving me crazy. Okay. I appreciate that the Medea Awards of Excellence was announced in last week's Friday letter and encourage everyone to plan to attend and to nominate someone or multiple people for an award. Additional information and the link to the nomination form is available on our website, ourmedea.org. I remain hopeful that the relationship between management and our union will improve and move toward more collaboration. I want to let you all know that we are very worried, though, about what next year will look like. We are already hearing that many of our colleagues will be moving to other districts, leaving the profession or retiring. Who will replace these people who leave? Who will teach and support students next year? I encourage you all to give serious consideration to this issue and plan now to avoid large numbers of vacancies next year. Finally, I want to make sure you are aware that the debacles that are the CCEIS program and the new teacher project are driving teachers out of the district. In addition, these programs are a waste of money and students in this district are not getting the services they need. I encourage you all to focus on the students and making sure that they get the services they need. I appreciate all that you do. You are all dedicating untold volunteer hours to this district. That is appreciated. I know you all care deeply about the students in our district and the experiences they encounter on our campuses. You want what is best for students. If you have any questions for me about the issues I've brought to you, please contact me. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. We do not have any recognitions or resolutions, so we'll move ahead to 11, public employee appointment.
And we have Dr. Scudero to present our next two items.
So it's the Human Resources Department, excuse me. The Human Resources Department is bringing for the board's review and potential approval the appointment of Matthew Fielder as the Chief Accountant in the Budget and Fiscal Services Department. Matthew's career in education began over 15 years ago as a foster youth tutor. Most recently, he's been working as the payroll supervisor in the Budget and Fiscal Services Department. Matthew earned a bachelor's degree in business administration with an emphasis in accounting. During the summer, Matthew can be found out in the Delta with his dog Molly and their kayak. With that, I leave this appointment in the hands of the board.
Can I get a motion?
Madam President, I move the board approve the appointment of Matthew Fielder as chief accountant.
I'll second that.
Trustee Nava Flores?
Yes.
Welcome, Matthew. Yeah.
Dr. Clark, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to get back to the fiscal side, the budget side of the department, and aiding Nancy and providing her the support as well as the other team, my other teammates, the support that they need to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. $11.2.
11.2. The Human Resources Department is bringing for the board's review and potential approval the appointment of Tiffany Jackson as the vice principal at Shore Acres Elementary School. Tiffany's experience in education includes working as a secondary education history teacher for 21 years, teaching in adult education, and currently she is the vice principal at Oak Grove Middle School. Tiffany holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in education. Tiffany is working to earn her doctorate in educational leadership and is expected to complete the program in the next year. When not working, Tiffany enjoys singing, music, and attending cultural events. With that, I leave this appointment in the hands of the board.
Madam Chair, it would be my pleasure to welcome Tiffany Jackson to the Bay Point family and nominate her as the vice principal at Shore Acres Elementary School.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores?
Yes.
Congratulations. I don't know you, but I know I like you because you're wearing pink.
Thank you for this appointment. I am grateful to be here and just excited on this new journey. And I can't wait to work with Dr. Rodriguez. And this is going to be a great experience for me. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Moving on to 12.0. 12.1, review of enrollment and demographics report.
Yeah, we're going to be having a report from Davis Demographics. I don't see Dr. Gonzalez. She might be in the hallway getting them.
Did we move too fast?
No. Thank you.
Good night. Yeah.
Maybe we can take a moment. I know we have students in the audience. We just did public comments. We're not going to discuss the Concord High mascot tonight. It's not on our agenda, so we can't discuss it. So we heard your input, and we'll go from there. You can email me, Dr. Clark. All right, thank you. Yep.
Yay, Dr. Gonzalez. Oh, thank you.
Good evening. So this first item here, we don't have Davis Demographics presenting tonight, but they did share their presentation, and I just wanted to see if there were any questions. I know for the last 2 years they've been here and they've been able to present. So just curious if there is anything specific anyone would like to know. Just to be clear in what we do with this information, we use our enrollment numbers and what we're seeing as our trends. And then we also take a look at what we know about certain communities and what happens with grade levels. And we triangulate that data in order to determine what our staffing is from year to year.
Through the chair, my only question would be, I didn't take the time to pull out the book he gave us last time and compare. Have they changed significantly? Remember, he was here like 2 years ago, and if so, then it's not. I would just ask that I get a copy of the presentation. That would.
Oh, sure. I can get you a bound copy of that. I'd say the biggest change is that the enrollment drops have leveled off. So when he originally did his first report, it did not include the fact that we would be increasing transitional kindergarten the way that we are. And so that piece is something that has changed a little bit. As you all well know, as one of you kindly let me know about the changes with the city of Concord over the weekend and the Concord Naval Station. I did go back and ask that question. I said, do you want me to pull this off the board agenda and, go back and take a look at it? And he said that that information that he had received from the city of Concord was actually so far into the future, 2028, 2029, 2030, that it's not going to affect anything that we're looking at right now. And those long-term predictions, anything beyond 3 years, is more than we would be looking at for any of our budgets anyway.
Are there any other highlights you'd like to share from the report?
I think the one thing that we're really taking a look at right now is that transitional kindergarten enrollment. And so what it's doing for the most part is it is masking the declining enrollment. And I know that everybody doesn't like to continue to hear declining enrollment, but the rest of the state is declining enrollment as well. We just don't have enough or as many babies being born, and people are waiting longer, and there's a lot of movement out of state. And so the movement out of state isn't really balancing the movements that's coming into the state. And so we're losing anywhere from 2 to 3% of the students every single year. And that is expected at least through the next 10 years. And that is represented in the demographic reports. The other thing I would like to point out is that the other thing that Davis does is they have firsthand information on everything that every city is doing. So they are regularly in contact. They are on every single email list that exists out there. So if there is any type of growth, if there are permits that are going in and there are 10 houses here and 20 multifamily establishments going over in this area, what they're able to do is they're able to calculate the impact on the schools that are within that jurisdiction. And so everything that they're doing every year is really making sure that the most current information is available. And then we just take that, and it's, again, one more data point that we use to determine what our enrollment and what our staffing is going to be.
And I would trust that they realize any growth in Bay Point, they'd have to go to the county, not to the city of Pittsburgh.
Correct. Thank you.
I did inquire about 94549, which is the Lafayette area of a part of our district. And could you share the response about that?
I can. So the response to that one has to do with the fact that those students are incorporated in other areas. And so while they may not be born in that zip code, they're actually incorporated into the zip codes that are around that and the schools that are corresponding. So anything that any children that are born in that zip code are actually being moved into local schools and being calculated.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think just overall, this looks to me like very good news for us, because I think looking at the state overall declining enrollment drop-offs, we're actually looking quite level, relatively speaking, you know, so it is declining, but just looking over 10 years to go, like if you look at our TK-12 numbers, to be at 28,700 and then 10 years out, 27,600. So that to me, I think is good news. And I did see in some of the years, there are increases like in 2025. And so I assume that has to do with some of the development that they're including in their projections, as well as the TK. But so there's some good news there. And I think for us, it's going to be about continuing to promote and champion our schools, because there's a number of students that live in the area that have choices between our district and other local schools.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next, state budget, governor's proposed budget.
I'm still here.
Yes.
So of course, everybody has been really excited about at least finally getting the information on what the governor has been thinking, as well as some balances with the legislative analyst's office. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through. Thank you very much on advancing this. I do want to let the board and the public know that there was a workshop that was held yesterday with capital advisors at the County Office of Education. And so even as late as this evening, I've shared a couple of new slides, as well as some calculations on what the impacts are for our district, because I think that's really where most of the interest is. I was able to work with the fiscal department and get that. And so if anybody looked at the slides even 3 hours ago, they're a little bit different. There's a couple of slides that have been added. So I just wanted to point that out. This is our budget cycle. It's more of a circle. Today it's an arrow. But where we are right now is we're with the governor's 2023 budget message. And so what we do is we listen to what the governor has to say. We start vetting some of that information. We listen to a lot of folks from Sacramento, especially lobbyists, that give us some information as to what they think might change with the governor's budget. And then we wait until May. We kind of call it the sausage making phase, because that's where everybody has an opportunity to weigh in across the state. And there are certainly a lot of individuals who have started to do that in organizations. And then that leads into the second interim. So it will impact some of our assumptions for the second interim. And so we want to make sure that we're always keeping everything current. This is one of the slides yesterday from Capital Advisors, and they did such a great job. I thought I would just go ahead and use theirs. So there's a lot of information on this one, but really it starts with the 8.13% COLA. I'll explain a little more about the COLA in just a second. But really what they're talking about is certain additional funds for example, transitional kindergarten expansion and the staffing. There are some conversations at the state level about whether that's going to go from 12 students down to 10. In all of these, the most important part is the trailer bill language. And so what they do is they toss things up that look like bullets like this, and then there are discussions, and then the trailer bill language comes out that specifies it. The trailer bill language was supposed to come out today. As of a few minutes ago, we've not heard any updates on that, but that'll be really important for us to interpret with some of these. There's an equity multiplier for LCFF. Not sure that we're going to get anything from that because we're not a district that gets concentration dollars, and that's because we don't have 55% or more of all of our students falling into a category where they would receive additional funds because of poverty levels. Narcan, there is a proposal to have Narcan available at middle schools and high schools, and that would be something that would be ongoing and renewed. These next two are a challenge. One has to do with literacy coaches, and one has to do with cultural experience for high school seniors. What some of us find very difficult with the literacy coaches is that we love this idea, but when you tag it as one time, you get funds one time. So if you just do some basic calculations, we might get 3 literacy coaches, and we would try to find people, we would hire those people, and then those jobs would go away because the funding isn't there in the future. And so there are really some concerns among the educational community of, if you're going to make a statement like this to say these are important positions that the state wants to have, the state should be funding them ongoing. And so that's one that we're taking a look at. We're curious to see what's going to happen with the $200 per senior, but ideally what that means is there would be an investment of approximately $200 per senior in high school, so they could go out into the community and they could participate in arts, activities, events, whatever it might be, in hopes that we're going to be growing a community of young people who are interested in partaking in the arts, opera, dance, ballet, orchestra, whatever might be going on in communities. You know, that $1.2 billion reduction in the art, music, instructional material discretionary block grant, that is a reduction in this current year. So imagine you get your budget, you plan for this year, and then they pull some of the money back. And actually the proposal is to pull back 1/3 of what it is that districts have been allocated. We're not thrilled about that. We always understand in future years it might make sense, but when we've already got a school year started and we've got funds allocated and we're expecting to spend those, to hear that 1/3 of that would have to come from other sources is a bit challenging. And then some reductions in general fund resources that we'll go ahead and take a look at in a minute. I want to explain the Prop 98 guarantee. So the Prop 98 guarantee in its simplest terms is that 38% of the state budget approximately goes to public education. That's the guarantee. And so what you'll see here is you're able to see year after year the amount of money that goes into the guarantee that public education should be getting. The challenge this year is, and it sort of goes hand in hand with the COLA, but what's happening is that we're receiving a COLA that's higher than what was expected, 8.13%, but it is funded with one-time money that's coming from the savings that the state is seeing with ADA. Why is that? It's because the attendance statewide is dropping in pretty much every single district. So it used to be that everybody hovered around 94.5% to 95, sometimes 96. And we're seeing those numbers around 90 and 91 across the state. So if we're funded on ADA, it means we have this big group of students and every day they're in school, we get money. But that money is shrinking because students aren't in school for whatever reason. So this is a bit of a concern because they're reducing the funding. And so it's elevating this year's COLA. So what you see here is you see that instead of what we had expected, which in all of our budgets based on the school services dartboard, we were expecting 5.38% for the MYP for the COLA for this upcoming year. It's now increased to 8.13%. So basically it's an increase of about 2.75%. So we'd already budgeted, right? We'd already budgeted the 5.38%. And now that's going up 2.75%, except you have to take into account the change in the ADA. Now, I want to say that as we watch legislation, some of the most important legislation right now may be coming from Senator Portantino down in Southern California. This is the proposal that he introduced last year. It didn't get a lot of traction. We wish it would. We're not sure that the legislature is going to be able to stomach this, but what he is suggesting is going back to the model that we all grew up in, which is you get funded based on enrollment. I'd love it if it was like that, but I don't think that's going to happen because the state is able to use the savings to balance its own budget. So we'll see what ends up happening with that, but this is going to be a challenge moving forward. So this is the brand new slide that I created just a while ago after I got some numbers. And so I just want to explain what happens with the ADA drop and what it looks like in Mount Diablo. So if you take a look at the first row there, when we did our adopted budget back in June, our ADA, our average daily attendance assumptions were 93.5% this year, 94% next year, 94.5% the following year. For those of you that were at, I think it was the PAC meeting not too long ago, we had numbers, and after really looking at that and vetting it with those trusted people that we go out, you know, the phone of friends, it's like, hey, give me some feedback on these assumptions. We all realized that the assumptions we had reduced from these were still too high. And so we reduced them down to something that was a little more reasonable, that looks like what we're seeing right now. We're seeing somewhere between 90 and 91% ADA as of P1. That's when we take our first really solid look. So assuming that our ADA assumptions that we used in first interim pan out, it means that we're going from 93.5% to 91% this year. That's a drop of 2.5%. We would see the same thing in the second year next year. We're expecting the same thing the following year. So just holding every single other assumption and the amount of money that we get per student, just keeping everything else equal and not changing anything else, it means that each year we would be receiving or have a revenue decrease of approximately $8.15 million. 1% is the equivalent of $3.26 million. And so any COLA that we might start seeing, we are automatically going to have to decrease this loss in revenue. So I really wanted to make sure that that point was clear and that we were using new numbers for this, because this is what CBOs and assistant superintendents of business services are looking at right now. It sounds like it's a lot more money, but it's being negated by ADA drop. I do want to share that LCFF, I know this sometimes comes up as a question, just want to share one point on this slide, which is that LCFF, which is where we're getting the COLA increase, maybe a couple of other budgets, it's only 59.62% of our budget, our revenue. So in a nutshell, 60% of our revenue would get that COLA, not 100%. This is another great slide from yesterday. And so what Capital Advisors did is they broke it down into two categories. They broke it down into the left category. So these are the ongoing funding programs that are not going to get the COLA. Well, look at some that are really important for us. ACES, our CARES program, not going to get the COLA. The CTE incentive grants, the workforce program, the partnership academies, the specialized secondary education grant. Those are some big ones that we want to take a look at because we don't get COLA across the board. Those that are going to receive that: special education, child nutrition, adult ed, mandated block grant, and a handful of others that you see there. So I think that slide really spells it out nicely where you get the COLA and where you don't. This was not great news, but if we revert back to the first interim report, I expected that this was probably going to happen just because I was reading the tea leaves, and that's exactly where we landed on this one. STRS is not going up at this point, PERS is. So our contribution to employees that receive PERS, you can see that this year is 25.37%. It was actually anticipated to drop in future years. I believe that we also had that in the first interim that it was dropping. It's not dropping, it is increasing. So what happens when it increases? Take a look at the chart here. PERS for the 23-24 school year Again, just keeping salaries the way that they are right now, we would increase $1.17 million, and then the following year, close to $2.5 million. So again, if you think about the COLA, and you think about the fact that our revenue is going to reduce because of ADA, average daily attendance, now here's another factor that is automatically reducing it out the door. We were hopeful that there would be some stirs and some PERS buy downs by the governor. We're not seeing that. We're not hearing that. We're hoping that many of the folks in the Education Coalition are going to start arguing for that. But we're not seeing anything in that category right now. Last slide. This one is a little more complicated. I'll let you just sit with it for a minute. But what this is showing us is that there were multiple years where we are now taking an average, right? So we're being funded on a number of different options. The one that is most beneficial for Mount Diablo is the 3-year average. So what it does is it takes a look at this year and it takes a look at the 2 years behind us, which means that even if our enrollment this year was stable, the fact that we are doing a 3-year running average means that we are always going to be looking at those drops in the back, in the back mirror. So in the rear view mirror. So this is something that we're really taking a look at because we will continue to see drops. You can see on the bottom chart, and I just want to thank SINA because they helped run these numbers for us. But in essence, what we're seeing, if you look at the funded ADA all the way over on the right side, you can see that for this year, we're dropping about $599 per ADA, and then it's going to drop even more. So that's something that we really need to take a look at because that 3-year running average is going to continue to show revenue decreases. So that's all I have for this presentation. Clearly, there's a lot of information that's coming out from Sacramento. As always, I try to update the budget advisory whenever there's something interesting that comes out. I always try to make sure that I send it to the board as well so that you can take a look at that and you can start hearing some of the things that we're hearing and how we arrive at some of our assumptions. But this is pretty much where we are right now as of the governor's budget message. I will say that this is one budget message where all the meetings have been much shorter. For those of you that are watchdogs and really take a look at all the proposals that usually come out and the permutations of money, you'll notice that this year was very, very, very shallow. We learned why yesterday. Apparently, the budget department in Sacramento, their computers were hacked back in December, which meant that nobody could access anything. And so their preparation for the governor's budget message was minimized. We're expecting that maybe this means that there are going to be more permutations on some of the things the governor and his team may be looking at. But at least for right now, this is what we're expecting. And our next really big check-in is going to be the governor's May revisions, otherwise known as the governor's May revise. They come in May, and that helps inform what we're going to be doing with our proposed budget and our adopted budget moving into next year. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a quick question. Sure. So you mentioned this periodically throughout the presentation. What exactly is COLA and what is the importance of it?
Thank you for asking. I thought I described everything else except for COLA. COLA is the cost of living adjustment. And so the cost of living adjustment is a calculation that the federal government comes up with every year, and the state takes a look at where we are here in California. And what it does is it takes a look at the revenue that we're getting, and it says, you know, based on all these factors, including the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, we're going to assume that it is fair to give this much of an increase on all specific budgets that are assigned in order to adjust for the cost of doing business, the cost of living. Thank you.
Just to add to that, I am so frustrated that the state uses that term because I think when the public hears the word COLA, they think what happens, like if you work for a private company and they provide a COLA, that is normally a cost of living allowance that just across the board everyone sees in their paycheck. That is what the public thinks. And when the state uses that same term to apply to, just as you described here, the COLA is not something that goes across the board into everyone's paycheck. It's only on a specific piece of the funding that we receive from the state, and that is only 56% of all of the funding that we receive. So there's no way that we could ever pass through that percentage down to our teachers and staff paychecks. But every year we have to explain that, and it's a very complicated thing to explain. So I would like to see the state call that something else that is not a COLA, because it's very confusing to the public. Absolutely.
Agree.
Because it's often, in this instant, it applies to school and it applies to other state programs and contracts. It could be like, well, it can't be contracts because schools aren't contracts, but a contract increase, because that's basically what it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalez, for that really comprehensive and I felt like easy to understand.
Thank you.
Probably, I don't know if it's easy to understand. I like know a little something, something, but it was easy to understand for me. And I really appreciate the explanation of the COLA and what it applies to and how it's really being eaten up by our reduction in ADA. And that's a nice little piece of gossip about why the governor spoke for less than an hour, which he's usually presents his presentation is upward of 2, and then you come back and it's 3 hours and he's still in a press conference, and it was like really short this year, because there was no there in his presentation on any topic. There was no there. And I think thinking of the May revise, he did talk about, he sort of, there is no there because they really want to know and be accurate after the tax day of how much revenue reduction we really have, like the real thing. And I think we should be I'm not the biggest fan of the governor. He's not my enemy, but we should feel heartened that he did in his budget work very hard to not make reductions that harm people. Like he kept those reductions as far away from immediate harm to people, to Californians as possible. He did leave the door open because, you may not know, but California has been contributing to a rainy day fund for many, 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 many years and has never used it. And we're all like, so it was literally raining at the time of the budget came out, and flooding. If this is not the time, really, when is it? And he did in his press conference leave the door open after May revise that's when they'll revisit if they decide to dip into the rainy day fund to again prevent harm to all the things that people depend on, like cuts that would be harmful to people based on things that they depend on. So I look forward to May revise. I look forward to April 15th tax day. Well, I don't really, but I look forward to knowing where we stand.
Well, the April 15th tax day has been moved.
Oh, right.
Right. Which adds another entire layer of complexity to this, because it means that we won't get that information. And in California, it's a major part of our budget. And so that is a piece of information that the governor and the LAO's office, they're not going to have for another month. And so it'll be interesting to see when those May revise do come out and how, aggressive or conservative they want to be with that.
It's constitutionally required to come out. But on that, whatever day it is, May 10th or May 15th. But yeah, I forgot. It's a 1 month delay because of the floods and because of our weather and all the harm that was done because of that for people.
And in the, when we were in the craziness of COVID starting, between the governor's message and the May revise and then the final budget, there were still major changes between those two. And so if he's not getting that information about tax revenue, it could very well be that between May and June, we're running multiple budgets and we're trying to respond to what it is that the state's doing. So we'll be busy.
And it's tricky because I appreciate, for example, the idea that the legislature is considering the governor is proposing the funding of literacy coaches, right? That's something that we would love to see a literacy coach in every school. But as you said, if it's one-time funds, what does that mean for us? And my question too at this point is, how do we plan? Because we're hiring now for teachers for the fall for next school year. So how do we know whether we have that or not, because we won't know for sure, right, until June. So for the legislature to consider that when they're making these types of decisions. But I do appreciate that you mentioned Portantino's bill about enrollment, because that's something that I just feel like our state needs to figure out sooner than later, because the movement that we see in terms of ADA and attendance, and we want people when they're sick to stay home. And right now, those sick days may be excused absences for our kids, but it's no funding from the state. And that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think we need to move to the enrollment model for sure.
I do want to ask, when presented this data, what are some disproportionalities that will result in the next year because of the revenue reducing? And how can that impact students?
I'm not sure that it's going to impact students at this point. As a matter of fact, when we're building our budget, we're having our budget meetings right now for our school sites. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on department budgets. And so we've had some additional reserves that we have the ability to be more flexible with. And I know that we're taking a look at some other things with staffing in order to try to better support students. So I don't think it would be fair if I stood here and said, we're going to be reducing a whole lot of anything, because at least we want to maintain the status quo. I guess if we want to look at it in the simplest terms, our revenue would probably be stable through next year, but we really need to look at those out years to figure out exactly what the impact is going to be, and just make sure that we aren't over committing to anything that we're not going to be able to pay for in future years.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So basically, for members of the public and for students, what I hear you say is the best place to get involved would be like your school site council, or at the district level to come to the budget advisory or parent advisory committee.
Sure. And if there are any school sites out there that would like to have short, abbreviated presentations like this, I know that most of them meet on Zoom still. I'm happy to do something that's shorter for school sites that may have additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Board reports, Trustee Nava Flores.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off in recognition as February 1st and the month of February being recognized as Black History Month. As the Board of Education, in which we are involved with creating and passing policies regarding the educational system, let us encourage the teaching of multicultural education with dignity and respect. To commemorate this occasion accordingly in our schools themselves with appropriate instructional materials, discussions, presentations, and opening up the space for our students. During this time, and what should be all the time, our entire community celebrates our different nations, heritage, cultures, and history. And recognizing the importance of this month, we don't not only reflect on the continuous advocacy and powerful leaders and contributions to our community and to our world. I encourage us to help support our students and continue to encourage pride and expression to ensure equity and social justice. It is important to gain representation through our educators and education by establishing a diverse curriculum. And it's also important to support our school clubs and community organizations, all while funding resources and opportunities for our students. I want to then take this opportunity to share that the HBCU Fair will be occurring this year at Mount Diablo High School. And for all our students listening, to make sure to bring our transcripts, your transcripts. You have opportunities to apply directly to schools themselves and also receive scholarships. The next thing that I want to talk about is just update the board with our student advisory committee. Last night we did have a meeting, and we were just collectively organizing our thoughts and our goals with how we want the rest of our school year to look like. And we have appointed new members from Ignacio Valley, and also a student in the College Now program. And then I also just want to, as a student board member, a big part of my role is to advocate for the majority and the minority for all of our students all across our district. And I want to take this opportunity to speak up about the teacher shortage and how it's still continuously affecting our students. Many teachers are still without teachers past halfway through the school year, and it is affecting their learning. At the high school level, and at all levels, students are being held behind. But specifically in the high school level, students are missing the opportunity in the education in which a lot of these classes they need to fulfill these requirements to graduate high school. For example, to graduate high school, you need 4 years of English. And at that, you have to be proficient in reading, writing, and speaking skills. As young adults, we need to get prepared for the real world, and we need to be prepared with knowledge and basic foundations. And that's all I have for tonight's report. Thank you.
Trustee Collins.
All right, thank you. In the last couple of weeks, was able to attend a few things. The DLAC meeting was wonderful as usual. The African American Focus Scholars Awards Night was so uplifting and wonderful to, I think almost all of us were there. It was fantastic to see and just so positive and energizing. And congratulations to all of our scholars and all of their improvement that they're seeing already. I also attended a Moms Demand Action event on how to prevent gun violence in schools. And one of the things they were advocating for was that all school districts post about Be Smart on the school website, district website, which I know that's something that we've announced numerous times through our school district, but it's basically all about, understanding that like 3/4 of youth shootings that happen, where they got the gun from was from home or from a neighbor or friend's home. And so if all of us, anyone who is a gun owner, secures and locks up their guns, we will all be safer, all of our communities. So continuing to share out that information. I want to thank Medea for sharing and planning collaboratively the Awards of Excellence event. I'm really looking forward to just, all of us coming together, whether it's teachers, staff, parents, community, to celebrate the excellence throughout our school district. So I encourage everyone to nominate people to attend. It's going to be, I think, a wonderful event. And it's great when people come together for our students. And just things that I've been hearing out there. One of the things is so many different times that we're hearing about HVAC issues in various school sites. I think a lot of it's with the different weather that we're having, but really looking forward to hearing from our district what sort of our strategic long-term solution is for this health and safety issue, using the funds that are available for those things. And lastly, just a reminder of a really great resource out there that is free from the state. That is the CalHope Schools Initiative. And it is calhopeschools.org. And it links 3 powerful resources together in one place for California educators and students and families. The first is A Trusted Space, which is a groundbreaking documentary and curriculum that was created during the height of the pandemic to support our first responders in education. The second is Angst, Building Resilience, which is a film-based program designed to help people identify and understand the symptoms of anxiety and encourage them to reach out for help. And it weaves personal stories with expert perspectives. And then the third thing, which is a new piece, so if you've been to this site before, you may not have seen this if you weren't there recently, which is called Stories of Hope Shorts. And so it's an inspirational short story and conversation series featuring real youth sharing real stories of how finding their pathway to hope was possible despite the emotional challenges that they faced. The stories include interviews with youth and professionals, all demonstrating hope is possible. So I know many of our youth are really, and adults too, have been facing a lot of mental health challenges ever since, especially with the pandemic. And so it's great to know that this free resource is out there for all of us, staff and students and families alike. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Trustee Mayo.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend the Budget Advisory Committee meeting on January 24th. And tomorrow night, the Contra Costa School Boards Association is having a virtual meeting beginning at 5:30 for the Board of Representatives. And then at 6 p.m., Dennis Myers will be presenting to the attendees. And it's a great time because it's an opportunity for trustees who attend to ask some definite or personal questions with Mr. Myers. And because he's familiar with Contra Costa County, he appreciates our candor, and he's very candid with us in our conversations. On next Tuesday will be the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education at 7 p.m. And it will be held here and virtually. Normally that meeting is a week ahead of our meeting, so we're a little bit out of sync. Last time we met, I invited adults who were interested in judging for the science fair to join us on March 11th. The judging day is actually March 10th. And we're recruiting judges for the projects, and we have over 100 projects to be evaluated. So it'll be an exciting day. And thank you to Ms. Johnson for mentioning Medea Award of Excellence. So I hope everybody marks their calendar for May 11th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Mason.
I went to the DLAC meeting and they had a great presentation on student learning styles, which the parents really appreciated and is helpful for our students. Went to the focal celebration, which I'm sure you'll talk about in your report. And I went to Riverview, hung out there today during lunchtime. Kids were loving the lunch. They were eating. Some of them threw some of it, but most of them were just eating it. They were acting like you expect middle school students to act. And at the end of the day, I was very impressed. They had a award ceremony after school was out. The cafeteria was packed with parents and families, and they recognized over 100 scholars that were recognized either by their teacher or had had straight A's so far in the school year. So good things are happening out in Bay Point, and that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Mason. Yes, on this first day of Black History Month, I will talk about the Focal Scholar Awards program. So happy Black History Month beginning. I just want to reflect that and remind that Black history does not begin with slavery and it did not end with President Obama. And I feel like we are very, very lucky in this district, in this recent history, that we can see our Black present and our Black future. I saw the future in the children at the African American Focal Awards awards. So imagine, you know, are those called multi-purpose room with MUs, well, filled with parents, family members, and children, young and Trustee Nava-Flores' age. And it was so wonderful that through this SACE plan that is focusing on both on children that are in foster care, children who are homeless, and children who are African American. This night, it was around the African American children. The joy and pride of little children and big children being honored for their academic success, their academic growth over this first semester of school, or I don't know, elementary school trimester, or just growth in themselves as human beings. And what moved me the most, because little kids are cute and you expect them to be happy and you expect middle schoolers to be all grumpy, right? But I would just love to honor Dr. Francis because his middle schoolers, the way that they cheered each other on, and they were mostly boys too. And, you know, middle school boys, ew, like just, you know, it's just the way, you know, they're just middle schoolers, that the way he hyped them up, the way they hyped each other up as they each got their awards was amazing. And I think is just an example of when you have this adult who clearly cares about you and clearly believes in you, that you then believe in yourself. So I'm just really thankful for our SACE plan and the implementation of it, because it's really benefiting our Black students and their families. Being Black History Month, Dr. Clark doesn't talk about himself much, but I'd also like to appreciate Dr. Clark as Black History. Right before our meeting today, I emailed him. I'm like, you're all up in my work inbox because there was an honoring of him, but this actually happened a couple months ago because we knew about it before the holidays. But Dr. Clark is one of, is it like 10 superintendents nationwide to watch? Like, he's a superintendent to watch. And I'm reflecting on that. Obviously you're a Black superintendent, but I'm reflecting on how much you've moved this district for all students, but especially Black students, and being so focused and so supportive, and so like, you want us to get there and we aren't there, but you repeat it over and over that we are on our way. And this unapologetic commitment to students, to all students, is amazing and deserves praise. I know that oftentimes we might hear in public comment complaints of Dr. Clark, but I think, and comparisons to the past, but the past failed our students, and the past failed our Black students especially. That is why we have a SACE plan. And here we are implementing something that, one, now we see strong parent engagement, joyful children being recognized and acknowledged for their accomplishments and growth. And it's not going to end. And that there are school districts who have to do the same thing, but they resisted. But we've leaned into it. And even when it's messy, and even when we are transparent about the data, it's nothing to be proud of, but what we're doing to address it is we should be proud of. And that's only because we have a leader in you. So thank you. Happy Black History Month. Your report.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I have a PowerPoint, and I do want to thank you. I have those who listen to what I say and really watch my actions. It's all for the students. The only reason why we're here is for students, and if we're not serving them, then we're doing something terribly wrong. So as I reviewed the LCAP goals, and I, at the last meeting, I kind of focused on goal 1, and at this meeting, I'm just going to highlight goal 2. And this is really my expectation, is that we have high quality, culturally proficient, and responsive staff who will provide engaging instruction, respectful of all students' backgrounds, to ensure that they are college and career ready. And again, I value all of our students, and we have a very diverse student population. So in our classes, like, there should be activities where every student has the opportunity to tell where their name is from, tell where their parents are from, or how they got their name, or their heritage, or whatnot. And I don't lean one way toward another towards any particular culture, but why not celebrate all of our students on a daily basis? And that is what this goal really gets to. And our parents from different communities, instead of being afraid of people who are different than us, really to lean in and learn about them and really create those partnerships with them. So that's what this goal 2 really embodies. And I'll talk about the other goals at our next meeting. But I also just want to highlight our wonderful work that we are doing with CCEE. I've asked them to come to our next meeting and to present. And it was through CCE that we collaboratively developed this triangle here, that at the foundation of it is that educational equity, giving every last one of our 30,000 students in this district what they need to be successful. And that is not a one-size-fits-all process. It has to be different. There has to be individualized instruction. There has to be individualized relationships to really meet the dreams and hopes of every single family that sends their kids to our schools. And then, of course, that learning acceleration, where we're having high expectations for all students, regardless of what student group they belong to or what school they attend. And then we can't do that on our own. We got to have that parent, family, and community interaction that's really going to increase our students' social emotional learning. again, when we talk about MDSD excellence, I know I talked about this at the last meeting, but I'm going to keep talking about it because I'm super, super proud of the accomplishments of these 3 schools being named distinguished schools: Bancroft Elementary, Sequoia Elementary School, and Walnut Acres Elementary School. These schools, amongst all of our schools, but these are the 3 that are being highlighted and recognized at the state level, have achieved greatness within their buildings, and the staff, the students, and the community should be very, very proud of these 3 schools that I'm continuing to highlight. It is Black History Month, and you know, and one thing I want to say, even going back to the LCAP goals, we are so fortunate to be where we are at this particular time. As I interact and collaborate with superintendents across the country and across this state, there are superintendents or educational leaders who would either be fired or even charged with crimes with what is in this presentation. And even going back to our LCAP goals about cultural proficiency in all students, and then even the mere mention of different student groups. So yes, this is Black History Month. We are going to celebrate it. I hope there's some acknowledgement of it in our classrooms, in every classrooms, and in every school. I hope. But if there's not, we have something that we're going to do at the district level to acknowledge this. And this is a direct result from our SACE plan, which it doesn't matter to me what student group was our lowest performers. If we have students who are performing and the data is unfavorable for them, we should do everything in our power to support those students. And so at this particular time, it's our African American, it's our foster youth, and it's our homeless students. So we should do everything within our power. I wish it was collaborative and we all could come together and do this, but in the absence of that, we have to continue to press forward, and we will continue to press forward. And so this is aligned with our LCAP goals. You can see LCAP goal 3 and 4, which I'll just read number 3. And parents, family, and community will be informed, engaged, and empowered as partners with MDUSD to support student learning. So February 23rd at Mount Diablo High School, everyone is invited. This is an inclusive event. Although we're celebrating Black History Month, there's going to be student performances. There's going to be, activities. There's, I will do a little talking, not too much. I don't want to bore the house, but I will take that opportunity to talk about the things we're doing in the district and the work that we still have to do, our shortfalls and our successes. I will highlight. So that's Black History Month. I'm a little nervous since we have Ms. Garces and Ms. Fireman in the room, because I'm going to talk about our dual language programs in the district. And again, when I talk about things that we're able to do in this district, because there are parts of this country where they don't believe and they only believe in teaching in one language, right? The majority of our students in our district are of Latino heritage, right? So why would we not embrace that? And why would we not have our schools reflect that and have, our culture celebrate it if that is our majority, right? It doesn't mean that, I think I've said throughout my report that we celebrate all students, but this is a majority. So we do have dual language programs in our district, and I wanted to put something down, because as a board, we often hear bits and pieces about our program, some good, some negative, this and that. And so I just at least want to define what these programs are, where they are, how many students are benefiting from them, and maybe that will help clear up some of the confusion and maybe advocate for some of these programs. There's a lot of words on here, so I really don't want to read them all. I'll let you all read them, but I'll just highlight a few things. Is that we have 6 schools with dual language programs, and this is not including Bel Air, where the final 5th grade class is promoting out. So we have 6 schools, and the way we support it is 2 different ways: one-way dual immersion and 2-way dual immersion. The one-way is where the classroom classroom composition is Spanish speaking students learning in English and Spanish, right? In the old days, they used to call this bilingual education, right? Then there's 2-way dual immersion, where you have both Spanish and English speakers in there, and part of their instruction is in Spanish and part of their instruction is in English. So
for the two-way dual immersions, TWDI programs, Bancroft Elementary, one of our distinguished schools. Just want to highlight that. There's 304 students, and there's 12 classes, K through 5, and the teachers partner, and one teacher teaches in English and the other teacher teaches in Spanish. Then we have Holbrook, which we have a TK5 program, and then they promote up into the 6-8. And so as we look at our numbers at Holbrook, and this is a pitch for Holbrook, we need more students in Holbrook, right? We have a K-8 school there, and we have right around 400 students in the 400. Actually, it serves 362 students, but there's 18 classes with TK through 5th, and then we have 55 students in our 6th through 8th grade program there. Now, mind you, our class sizes for middle school are right around 30, 35 or so. So if you do the math and divide 3 into 55, you can see the class sizes there. So Holbrook, again, you can read up on Holbrook, but it is a school where is open to all students, and it's open to students who are coming from, say, a Bancroft or from some of the other schools that we're going to mention. So that's Holbrook. Then we have our one-way dual immersion programs, and we have Cambridge Elementary, which is another small school, but it's a K-5 school, and you can see there's 282 students there. And the teachers, again, partner, which is a great practice whenever you can have teachers partnering. Even if this was just like middle school core, it's good to have an English teacher and a social studies teacher partnering. But that's beyond this. This is just about our dual language programs. And the students switch between those teachers, and these students, their dominant language is Spanish. So these is for our Spanish-speaking students. Then we have Meadow Homes Elementary, and there's this program serves 413 students in 15 classes, and in the whole school is not in dual language, but there's a dual language strand within the school. And so again, teachers are partners, one in English, one in Spanish, and there are three DL classes in 1st, 3rd, and 4th grade, and in these grade levels, there are more DL classes than English only classes. So there are some English only classes at Meadow Homes, and that is one of our larger elementary schools. And we do have the past proud principal in the audience here. Then we have Bel Air, and as I said before, we have a 5th grade that is terming out at Bel Air, but there's just 21 students in that program. And the students that are that want the dual language, they can transfer over to Shore Acres. Then we have Ignacio Valley Elementary, and at that program, we're serving 177 students in 8 classes. And again, this is it will be transitioning into a two-way dual immersion. Again, there's more than 177 students at the school, but they're moving into that direction. So, and at Shore Acres, this is probably our school that was last in kind of transitioning into this area. And so when you think about Bay Point, you have Shore Acres, Fair Oaks, and Bel Air, and Rio Vista. And so again, we have to make sure that we're being mindful of what the needs of the community, what the community has out there, and making sure that there's opportunities for both our Spanish-speaking students and our English-only students. And so that's kind of what we're working with right now. So where do we have because these schools are so close, Rio Vista and Shore Acres are so close, that families that want English only, because what's happening in K1 and 2, there isn't an English only class at Shore Acres, so those students are going over to Rio Vista. And then for our middle school students, so Accelerated Spanish is a class created for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who attended dual language programs within the district, and so we offer these at Foothill, They have the accelerated Spanish, and also at Oak Grove and at Riverview, and then of course at Holbrook, they have those opportunities. So there goes 4 middle schools that students who are in the elementary programs have opportunities to continue their opportunities to learn in both English and Spanish. And I think that's the difference with these programs. It's not necessarily to learn Spanish. You're learning in Spanish, which as a benefit, you learn Spanish. So that was all my slides, but I think if you look at my report, LCAP goals, lofty goals for our district, student-centered goals. There's no goals on there that aren't going to benefit students. We go into our distinguished schools. We have excellent schools that are state recognized as excellent schools, along with our surrounding districts. Black History Month, right? It is Black History Month. We're celebrating our African-American students, and now our dual language programs that we have within the district. So there is so much diversity in this district. There's so much opportunity in this district, and I'm just honored to be the superintendent and to really keep that focus on really what is best for kids. And we are a bureaucratic body. There is bureaucracy that goes through it. We do have aging facilities, so things like HVAC systems, air conditioners, some of our drainage at some of our schools, some of the furniture in our schools, things like that do need upgrades. We are spending our bond money as technology continues to creep into our daily lives. We've had to upgrade so much of our technology. Last meeting, you approved the contract for us to get a brand new website. We're continuously doing new trenching for wiring for our internet. We're continuing to put arrays in our buildings to make sure that everyone has wireless. So we are a district that is progressive and is moving in the right direction so that we can better serve every last one of our students and every last one of our families. So, and I just appreciate the governance work that we do, each and every day as we serve in our different capacities. So, thank you. I know that was a little long-winded, but I wanted to do that. I'm sure Ms. Garces and Ms. Fireman will send me some emails tomorrow correcting something that I put on there or something. Okay, good. And I'll share all this in writing with the board so that you have that, and all my presentations are posted on the website and access for everybody. So, Trustee Count, I see it in your eyes.
I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. It's great to see you highlighting the dual language programs, because that's something that we're incredibly proud of in this district. And that, as you said, it's not something that any district can necessarily offer, because if you don't have the diverse population, you're not going to be able to even provide two-way dual language immersion if you don't have, people from both backgrounds to be able to come together and learn both languages. So it is a really exciting opportunity that I hope that parents look at and sign up for the coming school years, so that we can continue to grow that program. And we are fortunate to be in a state that does support these things. And so I think, we can continue to get support from the state level for our dual language immersion, and for things like community schools, all the engagement that you were talking about that we're working on already, to continue to build on that, and to make sure that our parents all have a voice in championing our students and championing all the various cultures that we have in our schools. And I just want to second what President Nzewi was saying about how fortunate we are to have you, Dr. Clark, as our superintendent, with that focus that laser focus on our students and on all of our students in this school district. And I think part of it is part of what you were recognized for as well was your ability to communicate, not only with the public, but also with each of us as board members, to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction and that we're all on board with those goals. So thank you.
I just want to also add on to that. We're very thankful for you, Dr. Clark, and all the work that you do. And like what was mentioned, you're moving us to a progressive future and ensuring, like I mentioned, inequitable and inequitable education for all of us. Specifically with this, I benefited from the bilingual or the one dual language classes. And I can definitely speak on behalf, I can go on and on about like speaking on it, but just to like say to here tonight, thank you for all that you do. And we really all recognize and appreciate you here at the board level, but also at the school site level with all the work that you do and the passion that you have for us young people. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
I was going to say, I loved hearing about, I know I'll move us along, but I loved hearing about, like, remember the 90s and the English only movement and the elimination of bilingual education. I just think it's amazing that, I mean, geez Louise, that's 30 years ago. We're old, but that here we are and we have, you know, all throughout our district, all these opportunities for English only learners and Spanish only, like starting as Spanish only learners, both English only and Spanish only can come together and learn and eventually hopefully leave us as completely literate bilingual human beings is really amazing. So thank you for that. Consent agenda 15.0. I'm supposed to read something. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Would you like to remove anything, anyone? No, there's not any focus.
I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Uh-oh. Okay.
I would just like to recognize the new community member for the CAC. If they're, the individual is in the audience, it's Hannah and Nestor. I'm going to mispronounce it. Maruccio? No? Okay, thank you. We welcome them, yes. Especially on CAC. We'll see them next Tuesday.
Thank you. We move to 18.1, review and potential approval of updates to board policies and administrative regulations.
Yes, I believe Dr. Rubio is going to address the 4,000s.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, again, if you've noticed, our policies have become live online, and it's just so refreshing to now see that we have a solid foundation to kind of work off of, instead of so many, you know, just outdated policies and things that needed to be updated and whatnot. And I know that Dr. Rubio spent a considerable amount of time on the 4,000s, trying to front load some of that work that was on there and really preserve a lot of the things that have to do with employees and whatnot in the 4,000. So Dr. Rubio, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We were happy to partner and get the support of the California School Boards Association in our review and our ongoing work over a long period of time. As you may know and likely know, before these come to you, they go through a review by their team. We rely primarily on their legal expertise as these policies come through the School Board Association. So primarily our goal was to, as Dr. Clark alluded to or said, to get these up to date, because many of them were very, very out of date. So we feel very confident that these are now up to date with the current laws as of January, and we're very happy to have them before
you. Any questions? Okay, yeah. So like no questions or
I just want to note what was written in the summary here as well, that that board policies and regulations that have been board approved after January 1st, 2020 will be included in the completed packets. So just to recognize for the public that that's part of what's coming forward. Yeah.
Okay, we have a public comment. And Tatiana, I'm so sorry that I'm gonna write down your name so it's always up here because I don't want to butcher it. No, it isn't because I have an NZ, so.
It's my married name.
Oh, okay.
I'm attached, but not that much. Hi, I was here last time that you approved it, and I'm not gonna try to talk you out of it anymore. But I was characterized as someone who got hyped up over nothing because the policies aren't going live, they aren't in effect, and our lottery was safe, which is not the matter. But and I realized I forgot to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Tatiana Leskovets. I'm an attorney specializing in public agency law, schools, public agencies. So when you say it's not going live, it's not true. It is going live. And when you say you're not going to do anything, that means you are stating that you're not going to follow your own policies. And so this is how it's going to play out should something happen. I'll take an example of the transfer just because I'm familiar with it. Let's say there's a lottery, transfer is as it's written right now, and somebody doesn't get in. They can sue you and say you are not following your own policies. And you can say, well, that's on our website. And they will appeal it to you, the school board, I believe. I'm not sure who the appeal is. And you will say, but no, that we all agreed this is the policy. So we will reject you. And so they will go to the court, and the court will say their standard is arbitrary and capricious. Was your action arbitrary and capricious? And it is, because you're not following your own board policy. Now, the reason I'm saying this, and I appreciate that there's a later item, I've seen it, very happy, but please look at all these items, make sure that there's not a lawsuit waiting to happen. And if, ask the people who care what they remember, what they cared about, because we cared about the transfer policies, it's up on the agenda, but there are other things. So it is going live. So be careful with what you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. (18.2) Review and potential approval of the side letter with Teamsters effective February 1st regarding landscape department job descriptions. Ground worker 1, grounds worker 2, grounds worker 3, irrigation. It's a whole bunch of positions that will make our schools better. Thank you.
It will make our schools better. I'd love to bring up Melanie Koslow, Director Melanie Koslow, who spent a lot of time on this M&O reorganization, which this is the landscape piece that we're talking about today. And again, this came out of that FCMAT report issued back in January 12th, 2022. Plan was generated over the summer. We had a lot of constructive sessions with the Teamsters, and we came to this conclusion in the side letter. So we're revamping how the landscaping department does its work. There are some increases for some of the people that were shifting around into new positions. And then again, we are going to be abolishing the old positions once we move people over into the new positions. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
I just wanted to say, again, thank you to the board, Dr. Clark, for the support that we've received with this much needed restructuring of the department, and also just acknowledging the work that we've done over this last year with the Teamsters, both, the business agents as well as our employees that have sat at the table with us. It was a great collaboration, and we really believe in the structure that we're putting together. So thank you.
I would just like to publicly acknowledge the collaboration with Teamsters on this. that when we work together side by side with our bargaining unit members, they have all kinds of insights that they share with us that makes the end product much stronger than it was when we started. Turn this over to the board.
Thank you.
If I could just make a comment, I want to just recognize, Melanie for her leadership in the department. It is tough to lead an entire department, and she's been doing that for some time. And then also to be at the table representing management, but with the people who she's in the trenches with each and every day going through this process. And so I'm glad it was a collaborative process. As we know, sometimes these can get contentious and whatnot. And just really want to recognize that leadership. And I know it's a fine line that whenever you're at the bargaining table with people who you have to see every day and work with and stuff. So want to recognize that and the whole team for pulling this together. Again, the fiscal department, the HR department that spends so much time, bargaining and negotiating and dealing with that when, how many times have we heard about vacancies and need to hire and things like that? That's really what HR should be focusing on. But this is important work, and I'm not minimizing that. And to see all those positions on this item that are being, reviewed and are, in this side letter is just a tremendous accomplishment for this team. So I want to thank you, the board, for your leadership and guidance, because you were throughout this process every step of the way, and just again want to recognize the whole team for this.
All right. And with that, with thanks to everyone who was involved, all of our staff, all of our Teamsters, for all of you having the energy and focus and thought to make these changes that are going to be so much stronger for our school district moving forward. Just really appreciate your vision on that. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the side letter with Teamsters effective February 1st, 2023, regarding landscape department job descriptions, grounds worker 1, grounds worker 2, grounds worker 3, irrigation technician and grounds senior lead worker, salary schedule changes, and abolishment of the positions of groundskeeper, grounds equipment operator, groundskeeper gardener, medium equipment operator, sprinkler maintenance technician, and senior grounds lead worker after all affected employees have been moved into the new job title positions.
I'll second that.
Trustee Nava Flores.
Yes.
Yay. Item 18.3, review proposed course of study for 7th and 8th grade accelerated Spanish. Okay. Is there a presentation?
Ms. Sachs and your team. The team. Sorry about that. I usually introduce it. So yeah, I didn't review proposed course of study for 7th and 8th grade accelerated Spanish. I see you brought the 2 professionals here.
Absolutely. I do not travel without them when I talk about this subject. So thank you, Dr. Clark, all of our trustees this evening. To really piggyback off of our superintendent's report this evening was actually a surprise to the team. We knew we wanted to provide an update for the board, so we do appreciate the intro. We are really very excited about bringing the 7th and 8th grade accelerated Spanish course to the Board of Education for review tonight. You had seen the 6th grade course earlier, but just to provide a little bit of review, we've got Assistant Director Catherine Fireman and Director Carmen Garces here to go through a very brief presentation and to answer questions.
Dr. Clark, you made me very proud today. You know, as Mrs. said, we said for many years, California lived under a climate that it was not conducive to bilingual education, but we were able to sustain the programs. And seeing our superintendent highlighting something that it's so dear to us and that many parents appreciate, I just cannot tell you how happy I am. I'm very, very proud to be part of Mount Diablo. So thank you to everyone. Any program can be improved, but just seeing highlight today is very special.
I didn't even know you were going to be here.
Thank you. You know, if you remember, we have some kids that are coming from the dual programs that are going into middle school. And we have some students that they go to Holbrook and they continue their 50-50 program there, and they take Spanish, language arts, history in a Spanish. And then we have other kids that go to Foothill, Oak Grove, and Riverview, where we do not have a dual language program, but we wanted to give them a pathway to continue developing their Spanish at a higher level. Because if you remember, in middle school, kids don't get to world language until 7th and 8th grade. And they start like, my name is, what are the colors, what are the numbers? And our students are way past that. So we design courses of studies that they were aligned with the Spanish standards for 6, 7, and 8. And last year, you approved 6th grade. And we are bringing, for your information and consideration, 7th and 8th grade. And these classes would be taken in the 4 middle schools mentioned. Okay. And so I leave you with Catherine, who's going to do all the work.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us the time to go, to go in a little bit more in depth. But as Carmen mentioned, last year, you all approved the 6th grade accelerated Spanish at those 4 school sites. And the reason why that was a year ahead is that's where they started. And then when we realized the 6th graders are going to 7th grade, then the pilot began there. So I just wanted to walk you through. It's very similar to the discussion we had a year ago. And we have our work aligned. I realized that I'm going to own up that we copied the same page. And so I realized we don't have our goal 4 on at the bottom, but we very much support goal 4 of our LCAP. I apologize that that is not tagged on here. But basically the purpose and description is exactly what Dr. Clark talked us through. And we didn't know he was talking about this tonight. So this is just perfect timing for all of us. But basically our idea is that our students who attend all 6 of our dual language schools will become bilingual and biliterate. And so as Carmen just mentioned, at Holbrook, they have the opportunity to continue with a 50-50 model in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But for our schools, our students who are in, well, they can all apply for Holbrook, but a lot of them want to stay in their local neighborhoods. And so we want to provide our students in the Bay Point and in the Monument area, and then also our Bancroft students opportunities to go to their neighborhood middle schools, Riverview, Oak Grove, and Foothill. And so we see that our continuum is that, so our students, when they're coming out of 8th grade, they also should be ahead of the pack in terms of their language learning. And so our goal is that our students will start being in, they'll be able to take the honors Spanish in 10th grade, and that they will have a high level of proficiency. So exactly what Carmen said, our students coming from our dual language programs don't need to learn their colors anymore. They learned that in kindergarten. They know the body parts. They know asking where things are. They are highly proficient, fluent Spanish speakers, English as well. And so that is the purpose for these classes, the 7th and 8th grade. And just a quick highlight of the timeline. So the first year, 2019, 2020, there were 3 programs. We did not have Foothill yet. And then the next year in 2021, we added Foothill to support the students coming out of our Bancroft program. We worked with our classroom teachers and EL TOSAs were working along with admin from the department. And so that has continued. So each year we've asked for surveys from our students, from our families, from our teachers, feedback on these classes. And here we are in 22-23 school year. We've met with our accelerated Spanish teachers. It's really interesting because we want them to understand who their kiddos are. You know, sometimes they're the world language teachers at their school sites. They teach Spanish and maybe other languages. And then this is a little bit of a different job. So we want to make sure that they really understood that they know that the kids have a different level, but we really wanted to explain the experience that these students that they have gone through. And so we had a wonderful conversation with them. And as you see, last time we were asked by you all about how the kids are doing as they're leaving and how are we measuring that. So we made sure that we included the Avant assessment, which is what our 8th graders are currently taking. 3 of the 4 of these schools have given it to their school, to their students in the 8th grade accelerated Spanish class. That will help us see where they will land in which of their high schools, what level Spanish they will be eligible for. And this is sort of our pathways that we were asked to create from our last conversation with you all. And so really at the end, we want kids who are completely biliterate, completely bilingual, and also getting our seal of biliteracy. And so you can see the top arrows in pink really talk about our kids in this program with the dual language, starting in TK or kinder, and then going through the pathway through the accelerated Spanish, including the 7th and 8th grade, and then through their high school programs. And if there are questions, we're happy to respond.
I just had a quick question on the, I love the pathways and that there's different options for depending where you start and where you can get to. But with the seal of biliteracy at the end there, could you remind us all what is required for a student to earn the seal of biliteracy? Do they have to apply for it? Does it just happen?
True expert.
Okay, for the seal of biliteracy, there are multiple criteria. The student needs to, of course, complete all the requirements for high school. They need to also score in the CASP, meet or exceed standards. They have to have a minimum of 2 in English in the 4 years. And then they have to demonstrate proficiency in a second language. And there are multiple ways to demonstrate proficiency. One, if you take the AP exam and you get a 4, you are fine. If you take the IB and you score a 3, you are fine. If you take 4 years of Spanish, then that's another avenue, and you would have to have a small oral competence, an oral competency test with your classroom teachers, because sometimes the instruction that they could receive in the classroom can be more reading or writing. So they want the students to have oral competency, or they can take the C set in Spanish. Now, we have students, now, middle school, the 2 years of middle school count as 1 for high school, so they can take 3 years. Now, for other languages that are not taught in the district, we purchase exams for the students, like in Korea, Chinese, Portuguese. We use the Avant assessments. Avant is the company. And so we just give them a assessment so they can demonstrate proficiency in those languages if we are not teaching that language in the school, you know. And if there's a student that has not complete the 4 years, we can, even in Spanish, we can buy an assessment for the student to see if they meet the standards. And if they are an English learner, they have to score a 4 in the LPAC. Now, it's critical for the students to take the SBAC in 11th grade, because if they don't take the SBAC in 11th grade and they don't meet or exceed the standards, they will not qualify for the seal of biliteracy, regardless if they are AP or IB.
I have a question for that. So I went through the dual language programs. I went to Bel Air and I did the bilingual classes, and then I continued it through middle school as well. I did Spanish in 7th and 8th grade, and I got credit for it, and I continued it my freshman and sophomore year. My sophomore year, I actually got into AP Spanish, and I scored a 4. So
that's it. You are done. You get that seal.
Would that mean that I would have to take the SPAC? Because this is a very similar situation for a lot of our students.
Did you take you are in 12th grade?
I'm in 11th grade.
Oh, in 11th grade, then you need to take the SBAC. Okay. Sometimes we find students that they didn't take the SBAC, and that's something that they takes them out of the run. There's no way around that. You know, we can find different ways to qualify them for the languages, but not for the SBAC.
And then I had another question in regards to the way that the format is for the high school levels, and this might be more directed towards the board. Are we assuring and ensuring all high school levels are providing Spanish 3, a Spanish 4, and some form of higher level Spanish?
I think that most of the schools have a Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sometimes they are different if they go, how do they go into AP? Mm-hmm. And Ignacio Valley has IB instead of AP. But, you know, the students can access up to 4 or more, depending of the high school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to follow up on that. So if they take the AP or IB in 12th grade, they don't get their score till later, right? So
no,
when they go, okay, if they're at graduation, will they have the seal of biliteracy, or they didn't?
Yes, because we are going to qualify them for the 4 years, because those students usually have already 4 years of a study before they get to the AP or the AP.
Okay, so the 4 years
we can give them an assessment, you know, so we try to work around that. The one that we cannot work around is the SBAC.
Specifically the ELA.
The ELA, yes.
Yeah.
The SBAC ELA.
Standards or exceed standards.
Yeah.
So that's really important. So please spread the word at Mount, because unfortunately we have kids who can pass all the Spanish, but they, a lot of our students are, I'm learning. I was like, what? They don't take the test.
So for the public, can you explain what SBAC stands for and how one takes it?
I'm so sorry. It's the CAS for the standardized assessment that we have in California that measures the competency in meeting that grade level standards that the students take in 3rd through 8th, and then in 11th grade, you know, and they take in English language arts, in math and science, but for the seal of biliteracy, we only look, it's the only thing that it's taken in consideration is the English one.
So it's the CASP that they already take. So
Yeah.
who doesn't take it?
Sometimes.
Oh, so if they've opted out, then that's the question. Okay.
Yeah.
We've been working with counselors to let the students know as freshmen, they take this as a junior if you know.
So normally all students already take that test.
Yes.
So it's not that they have to sign up. They normally all take it. But the issue is if they opted out. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That helps a lot.
You know, sometimes I call them CASP, sometimes I call them SBAC. I apologize.
Thank you so much. We have a public comment. I'll invite Tatiana back up.
I'm actually here for this topic. When it comes to dual immersion, I'm like Trustee Mason with fingerprinting. I will always be here. Changing, moving a mountain and centimeter at a time. All right. Credentials. My name is Tatiana. I have a child at Foothill in 8th grade, so it's the first cohort of dual immersion, and I have a 4th grader at Bancroft, also dual immersion. And I myself am an immigrant, and I moved to 3 countries while being school age, so I know a little bit about learning language and being a kid learning a language. And when it comes to language, like in arts, the only thing that matters is interest and passion. The more you do it, the more you want to do it, the better you get. It is not like math, which I also like math, but not the same. And so why I love the dual immersion program is because, like Dr. Clark said, and it's perfect description, you don't learn Spanish, you learn in Spanish. And in 6th grade, that stops. There is no learning in Spanish anymore. There is just learning Spanish. The accelerated Spanish course is language arts. It's read a paragraph of some play that you're never going to finish. Analyze it, dissect it, write a paragraph about it. It is not engaging. It is not interesting. So for my daughter's 8th grade, 16 children are left. We started with 50 or some such. And most of them, the people who left, they don't want it. The kids don't want it. This is an elective. It takes, in 6th grade, it takes their only spot for an elective. So it's a fight with the children, and they have to go into it. And that's setting aside the fact that they, at Foothill at least, they don't actually follow this course of study. She's been doing present tense conjugation for the last 2 years. So they don't actually do it, and they forget it, and they don't care. And that's not what dual immersion is about. You can do other things. So ask yourself, why are we doing this? Why can't we do a year of history, a year of debate, a year of something else? She's looking at Northgate electives right now, and they have entrepreneurship. So in Spanish, she's going to start a business, do a business, market a business, describe a business. That sounds like fun. I don't have to talk her into it. She's excited, but I have to talk her into every single day going to Spanish class right now. And it will solve your class size issue, because history, anyone can take. The incoming 6th grader, incoming 7th graders, they can all do in a bigger class. So it's not 16 ratio, which not equitable. And it would be fun for kids. And so I ask you, why do you need this? They will be better off. And that's what my daughter says, actually. She says, well, I come home and I watch Spanish TV without subtitles. And you know what? It's better. I learn more that way. And I think that's true, because you want it, you absorb it, you learn it, and it's fun. And here in this plan, they get nothing after AP. And they get, after they get to high school, they get the same classes which you learn the language. And I'm not entirely sure, because there's been no testing, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not entirely sure that it's even appropriate, because they're too advanced. So I would ask you to wonder, is this what you want? Is there a plan? And you definitely can't stop at 11th grade.
If you can wrap up, please. Thank you.
Oh, as an attorney, since this is on notice, Brown Act allows you to talk back to me and me to talk back to you.
Yes. I understand that rule really well.
And
Thank you.
Tatiana,
But we still have a time limit on
along
public
those lines. I did have a question for you. When you said, when you're describing history, for example, are you talking about the idea of offering a middle school history class that is taught in Spanish? Is that what you're saying? So your point is that that would be more interesting than simply an accelerated Spanish class. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to 18.4. Review and potential approval to restore prior board policy and academic regulation. Isn't that administrative regulation? 5116.1. Intra-district open enrollment.
I believe we have it either Dr. Aguili or Dr. Aguili on this item. You may just be available for questions. I don't know if there's a presentation or if you'd like to say something.
This just simply restores the transfer policy when we updated the bulk board policies in the interim between us doing the work and submitting them for approval through CSBA. And then there was a change in our own policies in 2020 that we now just want to restore that policy back to where it was before. So where our administrative regulations for inter-district transfers remain as you all agreed to. Thank you.
And when our parents came last time, I told them I remembered this very well. And the confusion I have why I'm not ready to vote tonight is because we did form a committee of parents and school district folks, and they came out with the policy, and it was in 2018. It came to the board. We didn't approve it that night for whatever reason. And then it came back in 2020, but it was different. And the issue that I have, and I'm thinking what the parents have, they can correct me if I'm wrong, is that first one was very specific about the cohorts and solving that split. So the kids, if they started at Bancroft and they wanted to go to Foothill, they had a path to go to, and they weren't being split up by where they lived. That's all lost in the one that came to us in 2020. And I think the one that we're looking at tonight, if we told those parents last time, well, we're going to make sure it matches, but what one is it going to match? Is it going to match the one from 2018 or the one from 2020?
So the board policy is quite general in terms of what the transfers are. The specifics regarding the different priority orders, including the cohorts, is contained in the administrative regulation. In the 2020 round of discussions regarding this particular policy, on the first board meeting, the board did go ahead and approve the board policy, but asked that we come back a second time to add back in the cohort piece of it. In addition, there was some changes made at that point regarding employment, it being employed in the district rather than in the, in the direct feeder pattern rather than just within the district. And those were some of the discussions that we had. The version that we want to restore is that 2020 administrative regulation.
I'm not sure that completely answers my question, but thank you.
I'm happy to try again if there's anything specific.
I think maybe one point of clarification would be that the specifics that are in the AR that are on this agenda item tonight, those details match what a parent sees when they go to our district website and look at the order of priorities.
Yes, that was what should be attached this evening was what we pulled off of the 2020 document. I can double check on that, manually go in and double check, but that was what the direction was.
So to clarify, if you go to mdusd.org/intra-district transfers, it shows the priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just to confirm that that currently matches what is in this AR, which was passed in 2020.
I'm not familiar with what is on the current website, but I am familiar with what the AR is when the AR is presented. In 5116, the attachment to the board document is what contains all of the priorities that were approved by the board at the last meeting.
Which includes the cohort.
Correct.
Number 5.
Correct. That was what we added back in at the 2020 meeting. That is attached to this document here, which is
yeah, I believe looking at the two side by side, as I'm trying to do here, that is correct, that they do match in terms of the priorities.
And as the thing that would be the legal document that we would refer to would be the board policy, and the website would get updated once the board policy is updated.
So I entertain a motion, or are there any more questions? Sorry. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the restoration of board policy and administrative regulation AR 5116.1 intra-district open enrollment.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores.
Yes.
That passes 4-0 with our student affirming.
Thank you.
One more. Are you staying here? Dr. Geely? Yeah, review and potential approval of update to board policy 5114.21, administering medications and monitoring health conditions.
Yes, as we are reviewing the work that was done to process the bulk updates to all of the board policies, we're manually going in to make sure that there was no data lost in the transfer process between us sending it to them, then sending it back up, getting uploaded. And this was one that did happen to have a data transfer somewhere lost in there. And this is regarding the administration of medical marijuana. And when CSBA presents the sample policies, they did present two options. And one is that families would be allowed to administer medical marijuana on school campuses, and the other one is not. So we are recommending that the board adopt the second option, which does not allow students to receive medical marijuana on our school campuses because of the conflict with federal and state law within the state. The way it's worded now is ambiguous. It says both. So we're recommending we make the decision to not administer medical marijuana at school.
Questions or comments?
Would this be administering medication for students or for like staff?
This is administration of medication for students.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the revised version of BP 5141.21.
Second.
Trustee Nava Flores.
I abstain.
That passes 4-0.
Thank you.
We're done. Are there any future agenda items anyone would like to propose? All right. Oh, I get the thing. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Do we have any documents to
We
sign?
do not.